lecture. My name is Maria Stratigaki, and I welcome you in this lecture in the context of ProGender project that is implemented by the Center for Gender Studies at Panteion University. So, just some information about the project before I give the floor to our speaker tonight. The project is in fact a digital hub on gender and COVID-19. It is funded by the EEA grants, and it includes a series of lectures, online discussions, seminars, workshops, and then there will be also some reports and educational material. So all these nice things will happen in the context of ProGender project that now is at the third semester. We started 1 year ago, and now we have the last and the third semester. The project finishes in June 2022. So, as you maybe know, we have selected 5 topics to discuss on gender and the COVID. And these topics are care and labor, one. The second is gender-based violence. The second is on gender and communities. And then women in governance and women and gender in research. So on all these topics, we organize lectures and on online discussions. I invite you to visit our website, ProGender Panteion GR, and be informed about all the events that we are going to organize. So now we have tonight a lecture by Maria Karamessini. The title of the lecture is From Work Balance to the Care Economy, Gender Equality Policy After the Pandemic. It is very important to give you some information about Maria Karamessini, our speaker tonight. Maria Karamessini is professor of labor economics and economics of the welfare state in our department, the Department of Social Policy of Panteion University. She is now currently head of the Gender Equality Committee of Panteion, the newly established Gender Equality Committee in our university, and she is the director of the Center for Gender Studies that organizes the ProGender project. Maria Karamessini was president for 5 years, was president and governor of the Greek Public Employment Agency. And this means that she's not only an academic, she's a policymaker, and she has contributed very much on integrating gender in the employment, in the national employment policy. So it is somebody who combines the academic knowledge, but also the policymaker experience. So 2 words about the care economy. That is not only an academic issue, but it is also a feminist issue at the European level. The European Women's Lobby has promoted the idea of a care pact in Europe in order to recognize that care work should be at the core of our societies and not at the margins of economic analysis. This is something that came out after the experience of the pandemic. That means that we now all know how important were women in confronting the pandemic and in keeping society together. Women are the invisible hand holding our society together, is one of the motto of the European Women's Lobby. So it is a great pleasure and honor that I give the floor to Maria Karamessini to talk to us about, to give a lecture on this very important and new policy issue, but also feminist concern. Thank you very much, Maria. Please have the floor. Just a moment, Nelly Kamburi is going to organize the discussion after the lecture of Maria Karamessini. Just now that you know, you have to know everything for tonight's event.
So after this introduction, it's my turn now to say good evening to everybody. It's a pleasure for me to give this talk because I am among friends, many friends, as I can observe on the screen. So I'll feel more relaxed than usual. And because it is going to be a long talk, the organizers told me that I should take about 40 minutes. And then there will be a discussion. Nelly, if I'm not correct, you can correct me. I have prepared the PowerPoint for all of you because I have had some messages telling me that it will be difficult for people who are not experts or academics to follow a speech with terms that they are not used to listen to, even those who have an experience and they are fluent in English. So in order to facilitate the attendance of my speech, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation with much information. It's relatively overloaded so that you can follow in script what I will be talking about in oral. So I'm going to share the screen with you and I will start my presentation. I hope that the sharing of the screen will work. I don't, please.
It's okay, it's great.
It's okay? Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
So if it is okay, I can start. So the title of my presentation is From Work-Life Balance to the Care Economy. And this is what I'm going to explore because the aim of this presentation is to show if there is a difference from what we have been listening to and working on in gender equality policy when the European Union started using the term work-life balance. If something different is appearing nowadays under the term care economy. So the problem is how, and the issue is how the demand, the claim that Maria Statigaki has spoken about, the claim for a care deal in order to bring about a care economy, in what way this claim differs from more traditional approaches of work-life balance, measures and policy. So this is the aim of my talk. What is new about the care economy? The outline of my talk is the following. First of all, I will give you a brief historical overview of work-life balance or reconciliation of work and family life policy. You may know both terms, work-life balance, reconciliation of work and family life. These are equivalent terms and they are used alternatively. So I'll give a brief historical interview so as to locate historically when the beginnings of this policy where the beginnings of this policy are. Then I will discuss the aims of this kind of policy and its relationship to gender equality policy at the national and EU levels. This is the first topic of my presentation. The second is about the place that has been occupied by EU work-life balance policy in the EU gender equality policy under the European Employment Strategy and the Lisbon Strategy. These are two very big moments in the history of European integration, as far as the new era of integration is concerned, which started in the beginning of the 90s with the Maastricht Treaty. So I will deal with the place occupied by work-life balance policy in the EU gender equality policy during this era. And then I will speak about the adventures of this kind of policy in the 2000s and 2010s. This means during the 20 years preceding our times. I will show that these adventures are lead us to what we are calling now the care economy. The third topic of my talk will be about the impact of the 2007 and 2008 global financial crisis on work-life balance policy, and the development of the concept of care economy as the main component of a feminist alternative to neoliberal capitalism. The fourth topic is about the positive developments that took place during the period in between the two crises, the global financial crisis and the pandemic crisis. And at the end, I will speak about the challenges brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and the political momentum for putting the care economy and the care deal at the center stage of the political agenda of the EU in the post-pandemic era. Now I pass to the main core of my presentation. I start from the brief overview, the brief historical overview of work-life balance policy and its relationship with gender equality policy. The reconciliation of work and family life policy was invented in Sweden in the 1960s, and it was followed by other Nordic countries. The aim of this policy was to boost female labor market participation and at the same time avoid a care deficit in society and a drop in fertility. This means that the integration of women in the Swedish labor market were considered as a threat for the Swedish society, which had already a big demographic problem. And there was a fear by policymakers of that time that if women participated massively in the labor market, a care crisis would be produced. So they wanted at the same time to integrate women in the Swedish economy, which was a small economy. So they wanted, for the development of the Swedish economy, to mobilize the pool, an exploited pool of women as workers in paid employment, and at the same time avoid the demographic decline and the care crisis. So this was the basic aims, and this policy under the gender contract of that time addressed only working mothers. Only working mothers. I underline the only working mothers. So it was this kind of policy outside the Nordic countries was generalized in the other European countries during the 80s and the 90s, when the male breadwinner family model retreated everywhere and the dual earner family model gradually became dominant. There is a controversy among academics if if the reconciliation of work and family life policy preceded women joining the labor market or followed after they had already joined the labor market. The truth is in the middle, and it depends also on the national situations and the national contexts. What is included under the work-life balance or reconciliation policy? This kind of policy includes maternity and paternity and care leaves, flexible working arrangements for carers, and publicly funded care services. The equal sharing of both paid and unpaid work between women and men was at the forefront of the claims of the second wave of the feminist movement for gender equality of the 70s and the 80s. This is very well known, I suppose. But the equality dimension was introduced in national reconciliation policies only in the 80s. Under the following form. Working men were also entitled to care leaves, and there was a political will to make them take up leaves as women did. So the aim was to make working men entitled to these leaves and encourage them to take up these leaves. The second part is the encouragement was not very obvious in national legislations and national policies, though. So this kind of policy lacked the full equality dimension that the feminist movement was claiming since the 1970s. So as now a new concept, a policy field, because it is a very new one, it dates from the 70s, this kind of policy became integral part of the EU gender equality policy in the 1980s. And the aim of this policy at the EU level was the equal participation of women in the labor market, but also gender equality in employment and equal sharing of family responsibilities at home between women and men. This means that the EU gender equality policy in the 80s took over the claims of the feminist movement of the 70s and 80s. So in the discourse, the EU gender equality policy of the 80s used a full equality policy dimension in the meaning it conveyed to this term. The 1990s, this decade, manifested a different direction because of main policy developments. First of all, the reconciliation of work and family life policy was introduced in the European Employment Strategy in 1997 as a main axis of the equal opportunities pillar. The policy objectives were to enhance female labor market participation and employment rates by providing opportunity for women to have career breaks, parental leave, part-time work, and have access also to good quality care for children and other dependents. Excuse me, I have some problem with my sharing of screen. I cannot see my slides very well, so I will try to fix something here. I'm not sure I will be able to do it. No, it's not the correct thing to do. Okay. That's much better. Okay. Can you still see my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
This
we
is
can.
better. Okay.
Yes, we can still see your slides, Miss.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, consequently, the reconciliation policy concerned only working women, not men, and promoted gender equality only in the labor market, not at home. And gender gaps in care have been consistently outside of the scope of the European employment strategy. They are still outside the scope. The second big moment for the European integration project of the 90s and 2000s was the adoption of the Lisbon strategy in 2000. And this strategy was also meant to align national employment and social policies to commonly set targets through the open method of coordination, including the gender equality dimension of employment policy. In 2002, the European Council held in Barcelona decided two targets for coverage of children by formal childcare. You can see on my slide the targets: 33% of children aged 0 to 3 years, and 19% of those aged 3 to 6 years should be covered by formal childcare. And this was a target for all EU members. These were targets for all EU member states. Of course, the starting points of these different member states were very different because of the great heterogeneity of national care systems. Now, 20 years after the adoption of the Barcelona targets, the situation is the following. You can see the differences between member states on these graphs as regards the coverage of children by formal childcare. I don't know if everybody can see the figures on the graphs, but you can see on the first panel that the European Union has, as an average, has reached 36% of coverage. And then you have a great number, most of the Eastern European countries, and three countries are from Southern Europe: Italy, Cyprus, and Greece, as well as Austria and Germany, who have the lowest coverage of children aged 0 to 3. They are below the Barcelona targets. The case is different for children aged 3 to 6 years. Now, excuse me. Okay. I will turn to the impact of the Great Recession on reconciliation policy. At the national level, there has been a reduction in social expenditure on care services because of austerity policies. However, the European structural funds have continued to finance the provision of formal care services at the national level. And ironically, even our country, Greece, largely improved coverage by formal childcare services under extremely harsh austerity conditions by making use of the available funding from the European Social Fund. At the EU level, there has been a policy stalemate. No developments, apart from the adoption in 2010 of a directive on parental leave, which revised a previous directive, the previous directive on parental leave, after a framework agreement that had been signed by social partners, European social partners. The directive on maternity, the proposal for a directive on maternity leave and protection, which was published in 2008 by the European Commission, was not followed by national states or by social partners, European social partners, and was withdrawn in 2015. It was not a good moment. The crisis, the Great Recession, was not a good moment for promoting reconciliation policy, neither at the level of the EU or at the national level. However, at the academic level, there has been an important dialogue between feminists and progressive academics. The crisis had mobilized feminist economists to develop a feminist economic proposal to exit the crisis. And these feminist economists have developed a growth model alternative to the neoliberal capitalism that prevailed. And this model promoted gender equality as well as opportunities to develop internal demand in the economy. And these were the two main pillars that could bring the economies out of the crisis of 2008. This alternative growth model to neoliberal capitalism took the name of Plan F from feminism. So it was a feminist plan, a feminist alternative model. And one of the basis of this model, the most important pillar, was the care economy on one hand, and the 3 R's agenda on the other. The 3 R's agenda stand for recognition, reduction, and redistribution of unpaid work. And this Plan F was mainly developed by a very well-known British economist called Diane Elson. Recognition means valuation of unpaid work. Reduction entails replacement of unpaid by paid care work. And redistribution means reallocation from women to men and from households to the state. Now, after the 2008 global financial crisis, which for Europe ended in 2013-14 because we had a double dip crisis. This means a second episode of crisis in 2012, 2013, and 14. After this crisis and during the period 2015 and 2019, many important developments took place. At the international level, the United Nations adopted in 2015 the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, whose fifth goal was on gender equality. And this goal on gender equality adopted the feminist economic agenda on the centrality of care. One of the targets of the fifth goal is the following: recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies, and the promotion of shared responsibility within the household and the family as nationally appropriate. I have highlighted the promotion of shared responsibility within the household and the family, which was a novelty. The European semester has endorsed the UN Sustainable Development Goals and their accomplishment. And this is very, very important because this means that the whole European gender equality policy was obliged to align to the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development. At the EU level, we had three very important moments from a policy perspective. The adoption of the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is not socially binding, you know, it's not a binding policy document, the European Pillar of Social Rights. Its implementation depends on political will. Although the European Pillar was not followed by many implementation initiatives, one of the first initiatives before the pandemic was the directive on work-life balance for parents and carers. There has been a big discussion of this directive, and at the end it was adopted and entered into force in July 2019 under the new presidency and the new commission under the presidency of Ursula von der Leyen. But it started under the Juncker Commission. The gender equality strategy of the EU for 2020 and 2025 was issued in March 2010 and marks a breakthrough, bringing back the genuine feminist approach to gender equality and aligning itself with the fifth goal on gender equality of the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development. It defines the equal sharing of care responsibilities at home and the closing of the gender care gap as one of the intermediary goals and means to achieve a gender equal economy. The third important development is what Maria Stratigaki has mentioned in the introduction, is the adoption by the European Women's Lobby in January 2020, just before the eruption of the pandemic, of the Purple Pact, which is a feminist approach to the economy. The Purple Pact considers caring as the backbone of our society and of a feminist economic model, and proposes a care deal for Europe next to and in association with the European Green Deal. Now, it was a very, very crucial moment for the European Women's Lobby to adopt this kind of document just before the eruption of the pandemic. It was a very timely incident. Because the pandemic crisis was going to reveal the need for a care economy and the need for a care deal. Now I'm going to discuss in the second section of my talk what kind of crisis is the pandemic crisis, because we, as feminists, and feminist academics, we need a narrative on the nature of the crisis from a feminist standpoint. And then I'm going to discuss what has the pandemic revealed from a social and gender perspective. And finally, I'm going to elaborate on the way forward. What is a care economy? Why we need a care economy? What should we do to move towards a care economy? And what are the prerequisites in the current conjuncture? I will start with a narrative on the nature of the crisis from a feminist standpoint. What kind of crisis is the pandemic crisis? The pandemic crisis is often described as a triple crisis: a health crisis, an economic crisis, and an ecological crisis. But feminists maintain that there is a fourth crisis and long-standing crisis that we should also consider. This is the crisis of social reproduction, and this is very important, not only because we are living in gender societies, but because we are also living in aging societies. I will provide two examples of the crisis of social reproduction, not in the global environment, but for the EU. According to Eurostat data, today 65% of the people living in the EU and aged 65 years or more need assistance with personal care activities. Half of them totally lack assistance, while the other half don't get enough. The situation is even more dramatic for those aged 75 years or more. My second example refers to severe labor shortages in the care sector, which were revealed by recent research by OAED, the European Institute for Gender Equality. And the same study by OAED has also revealed that the reasons for these labor shortages are low pay and unsatisfactory working conditions, especially in the long-term care sector. So we are living in aging societies and gender societies, and these societies are facing labor shortages in the care sector. What has the pandemic revealed from a social and a gender perspective? First of all, it has revealed the centrality of caregiving and the immense value of care work for the society, and also the key role of women in social reproduction. This means the importance of unpaid work done mainly by women, great gender inequalities in care and domestic work, and the need for more equal sharing between women and men of care and domestic work, the importance of the welfare state, that is the public provision of care to ensure complete and affordable coverage of social needs and gender equality in paid work, the scope and continue of caregiving and its gender character, since caregiving does not only include social and personal care, but also education and healthcare. And all these sectors are female-dominated sector. So the caregiving is essentially female. And the second thing that the pandemic has revealed is the undervaluation of care work, and as reflected in the low pay, poor working conditions, and low status of care workers, predominantly female and of migrant origin. The third thing that the pandemic has revealed from a social and gender perspective is large social inequalities in access to adequate provision of care. Since the pandemic has brought to the fore great care deficits among large population groups, poor elderly people and disabled people, people living in remote areas without sufficient health and elderly care institutions, or with institutions suffering from understaffing and lack of protective equipment, homeless people, refugees, etc. I include all these kind of groups because the pandemic has obliged us to take a broader view of what care is about, of a holistic approach to care. Care is for everybody that is in need of being assisted by other people in order to provide for his basic or her basic needs. So we should include in care not only the usual suspects, children, elderly, and the elderly and the disabled, but all these groups of social groups that are in need of assistance with their needs, with their basic needs, and day-to-day needs. They all need care in a broad sense. And the fourth thing that I would like to mention that the pandemic has revealed is large inequalities between countries regarding unmet care needs depending on their health and care systems. Now, I'm going to be more focused on the care economy. Because the care economy is the way forward according to the feminist economic alternative presented and developed during the 2008 crisis, but also now even more important for exiting the pandemic crisis. So what is care economy? It is an economy in which access to high quality care at all ages is a universal social right rather than a market good or a private familial responsibility, available to all members of society with support by the state and provided in stable and respectful ways. The care economy is an economy which translates the universal right to care as a right to care and a right to be cared. It is an economy which endorses a holistic approach to care, which may include not only the children, the elderly, and the disabled, as it is currently the case, but all those in state of dependency, the homeless, etc. I mentioned these groups before. It is an economy in which the production of care and care work are valued. That is an economy in which care work is recognized as having economic value. That is, the measures of GDP and other indicators of well-being include unpaid care work rather than exclude it or put it aside. It is an economy in which care work is recognized as having traditionally reproduced gender inequalities, and therefore, to move to a caring economy requires public interventions to create equal treatment and equal opportunities in wages, employment status, and career advancement. And lastly, the care economy is an economy which, after the COVID-19 pandemic in particular, recognizes the contribution made to essential and frontline services by many women with precarious immigration status and intersectional disadvantage, and provides policy tools to end them. So what is the way forward? I will be quite brief. Why do we need a care economy? To promote gender equality, to tackle the crisis of care, to prepare for future health crises. We remember that we include healthcare in the broad sense of care. So we have health, education, together with personal with personal care and social care. So we have we adopt this holistic and this holistic approach for groups covered by the term care, but also we adopt the more inclusive term for bringing inside all the sectors that belong to this continuum of care that I have previously mentioned. So it is important to invest in, for example, in the health sector. Okay, this was a main claim during the pandemic crisis. So we need the care economy to prepare for future health crises. We need the care economy to also create jobs, facilitate the green transition, and reduce the ecological footprint of the economy. As you may all know, the jobs and in the care sector and the care activity has a very, very small ecological footprint. So it is very good for the green economy. And lastly, we need a care economy to bring closer the economy to the reality and the ideal of caring societies. We need to have a broader ideal in order to embed the economy. So we have to have a caring society which is served by a care economy. This is the feminist idea. Now, how to move towards a care economy? What should we do? What should we do? Large social investment in the health and care sectors. Measures to promote equal sharing of unpaid work between men and women. That is equal duration of paternity and maternity leave. It's a very important claim by the feminist movement nowadays. Equal duration of paternity and maternity leave. Non-transferable care leaves to encourage take-up by fathers. Increase in the relative wages of caring occupations and combating undeclared work among domestic care workers. And we should put the priority on the elderly and the chronically ill and the disabled beyond childcare. Of course, there is room of improvement in formal childcare, but we should take a broader look because the elderly and long-term care are a big problem in our societies, as I mentioned with the example I gave you and the figures I gave you about the coverage of the needs of the elderly. So, okay. What are the prerequisites for EU member states? The availability of resources and fiscal space. This means that we are very much anxious about what is going to happen with the Stability and Growth Pact. You know that we are currently in a phase that there are big discussions all over the EU on the review of the Stability and Growth Pact, especially discussions with the national governments. But there are also other civil society organizations and academic initiatives, initiatives in the academia, and progressives all over Europe are pushing for either overthrow. This is a radical strand, but a more moderate and social democratic strand speaks about a radical review of the Stability and Growth Pact. A prerequisite is a no return to austerity policies from 2023 onwards. You all know that the Next Generation EU is a new financial tool that has increased the resources by the European funds for EU member states in order to overcome the pandemic crisis and build a new growth model. This is why these resources should be used to increase social investment in health and social care. Unfortunately, there are no funding rules in the Next Generation EU. to allocate. There is no, for example, a quota for allocating investments in health and social care. This is why many countries, including Greece, have not used the funds from Next Generation EU plan to fund even the health sector, which is public health sector, which is in Greece very much lacking resources. Fourth prerequisite is having recommendations for EU member states lagging behind care services in the framework of the European semester. Of course, these are not non-binding recommendations, but it should be very welcome to have such types of recommendations instead of having neoliberal ones. The fifth requirement is the restructuring of sovereign debts, especially in countries with very high sovereign debt ratio to GDP, to allow lower servicing ratios in countries, for example, like Greece, Portugal, Spain, Belgium, Italy, okay. Without this fiscal space, these countries, including our country, Greece, won't have the opportunity to invest in care and to have public investment in care and social, in care and healthcare. The adoption of the sixth prerequisite is the adoption of the directive on adequate minimum wages, which is currently under negotiation between the European Commission, the European Council and the European Parliament. This is a very important directive for countries with low minimum wages and collective bargaining coverage rates and a high share of informal care workers. Greece is among the countries with the lowest collective bargaining coverage rates in the EU. So it is, and a very low minimum wage. So it is expected to benefit from this directive. And of course, women are concentrated in the lower end of the wage distribution. So they would benefit if the coverage, if from collective agreements and lifting the minimum wage to rates that are can provide for a decent living. Because in our country, I am now addressing the foreign auditors, and Greece is among the countries where the minimum wage is below the poverty rate and does not allow for a decent and independent living. My conclusion is that we should not waste the pandemic crisis, but seize the opportunity to jointly push for a care deal in a social Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. This was a really fascinating talk, and I think Maria gave us a very comprehensive overview of the policy framework, and at the same time, a very sophisticated and critical theoretical analysis of a very complex concept, which is care, and how we can understand it in the current period of crisis. So and also how we can translate this theoretical analysis into concrete policies and recommendations. So Maria, honestly, we would like to thank you a lot. This is a great contribution, and I think it fits greatly with the discussions that are taking place right now at the European level, but also at the national level in each of the three countries that participate in this project. Before we start the questions, I would like to say once again that this session is being recorded. So if you would like to speak, you would have to keep in mind that you consent to your voice or your video being recorded. If you would not like your face to be shown, you can use your only sound, but also you can send us your comments and questions on the chat, and we will ask Maria. Now, in order to take the floor, please raise your hand. You can find this in reactions on the right-hand side of the, and I will give you the floor. We already have one person who would like to ask a question. Her name is Helen Hammer. Helen, would you like to ask a question? Hi.
Hey, I was tending more to comment after the beautiful
Yes, or comments.
and enlightening speech that the speaker gave tonight. Even share my point of view. I need to first say that I am a graduate student in the Department of Social Anthropology and the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies of Culture and Gender in the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And I am pleased to be among you tonight, mainly because my contribution, if I have one, is the one of 2 points of view. Having lived the last 9 years of my life in Norway, having myself being a part of this equation that we discuss tonight, and even having the perspective of an immigrant woman and a feminist, I want to say that it gives me genuine pleasure to see that these steps are taken towards the liberation in the Greek society. It wasn't any automatic, and it wasn't a given fact. I was stressed thinking that this has to be done one way or another. What I find as a very challenging factor here is the fact that in Greece, besides the complexity of the matter, one has to also take in account the very problematic main narrative, the political narrative, the social consensus on several matters and matters of equality, of course. It looks like we just start discussing these matters and trying to catch up. Just to give an idea, here is the critique, more or less, based on what kind of equality do we need? Do we need this equality that we have? Like sometimes we talk in the gender gap, World Gender Gap Report, first or second. Is this enough? We have problems to solve. This is the Norwegian point of view. They are criticizing the fact that they are ranking high, but there is still much to cover. And one of the most important paradoxes that we mainly try to elaborate on is the fact that equality, from a feminist perspective, needs to be the intersectional equality, but also is taking in account the immigrant woman and the poor woman and any kind of marginalized group in society. In Norway, they have tried to solve these problems with the obvious problematic of the third shift by giving opportunity to au pair to work. The critique is there, like, if we get the equality that we want is it good to have the immigrant woman in the shadow working for us, if you understand what I mean? I wanted just to put some thoughts and maybe start the conversation. And yes.
Thank you, Elena. Are there any other comments or questions? And then I will give, we can collect them first and then ask Maria to respond to them. Please raise your hand or send your questions online. Well, while we're waiting, we have Danai Kunturi. Would you like to say a word?
Yes, sorry, I cannot open my camera due to some connection errors, but I do have a question for Mrs. Maria, if she's okay with it. In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that mostly the slaver, excuse me, can I say it in Greece because I don't remember the correct word?
Yes, but it's better if you write it and then we can translate it. Would you like to write it?
I just want to say that the slaver market, I remember, sorry, the slaver market was mostly for women. What I did not understand is how exactly there was so high demand on women, considering they needed more men to actually pull the strong jobs. Like
Sorry, the connection was lost. Danai, maybe you can write your comment in Greek and we can translate it. It would be easier. Please do so, because we cannot hear you right now.
Okay, give me a second.
Okay, now we can hear you. Yes.
Sorry.
You spoke about the slave or the Swedish. I was speaking about
the slavery market.
What slavery market? No, I didn't speak about slavery market.
Sorry, wrong translation again.
Swedish.
Okay, ask the question in Greek and we will translate, but it takes more time if we do it.
Okay.
In speaking.
Okay.
Just say quick. Just try to be quick in the question so I can translate.
Okay, give me a second, please.
Okay. Sorry, Danai, but it's a bit difficult. So while we're waiting, we have a comment from Androniki Rukai. Thank you very much. Your points and presentation were very interesting. It's very important to build a social Europe, a Europe of social solidarity, social cohesion, social protection without gender equality, but with cooperation and contribution between two genders to make a fair and transparent care economy which will maximize the social welfare and social justice. Okay. Now, Danai, would you like to, or anyone else, if you have any
Can you hear me now better? I have changed this room.
Yes.
If you can hear. Okay, my question was, do you believe that this will stop at some time? The gender inequality, everything, not just in a country, because many countries has, changes their principle, but in general, because it's not only about a woman being the weaker sex, if I'm allowed to say that, but in their works, their ethics, they're constantly being the lower ones.
We are struggling.
Maria, there is one more question I can read to you on the chat. I can read to the group, and then you can respond to all of the comments. It's from Maria Marimbi. You refer to the need to recognize the unpaid care work. How is the valuation of unpaid care work in the household envisaged? In which form? On the one hand, if the recognition of unpaid care work means compensation from the state in the form of family allowances, then this familiarization can have a negative impact on women's employment by incentivizing them to stay at home and undertake maternal and care responsibilities. On the other hand, the transformation of the unpaid care into paid care implies significant class element, since paid care work is usually undertaken by low-paid, often migrant women. The latter means that this type of recognition will be only in favor of middle class, highly skilled women who can afford it. Then, when we say paid care work, what do we expect from policymakers? So these are, let's take these questions and comments, and if you would like to respond, Maria, and then we can have another round.
Helena, I am not sure that I was able to understand the complexities of the Norwegian case, but I understood that there has been a policy measure about au pair girls. I don't know if these au pair girls are working in the black market or if they are, if they have to register.
They have a state status. They can register as au pair, and usually they are coming from countries of.
Okay,
Asia.
this is a regulation of informal work, so it. I
But
think
it
would
again to segregation of the market again.
In Greece, they are, for example, informal, so it would be. It would. It is very good if you can register, and should register, and if employers comply. I mean, households as employers comply to the
to say that
legislation.
Even a solution is considered as a problem here, just to illustrate the big gap the Greek society has to cover, and your role in this is so important. I really stand by the side and admire the work that's been done the last 5 years in these matters. And also, ProGender Hub is a part.
So let's move on to the next one.
Danai, you said we are struggling. I responded. I don't know when we will reach equality, but and if there will be a backlash. But we are struggling for both, not to have backlash and to go forward. And I think that we are at a good point, because there is a new feminist movement now that has sprang out of the Me Too movement and all femicides that have increased in the last years, but not only because they have increased, but because there is consciousness developing. We have a big movement and big feminist movement, and we are optimistic. I am very optimistic, and but this is my personal view. There are other developments, maybe negative, but at the level of social movements, at the feminist movement, I'm optimistic, and we have made much progress. The last decades. It's not a matter of the 5 last years, but of gradual progress in gender equality, which has taken place in the last decades. We are not at the same point as we were in the 70s, where this was the time when I was engaged for the first time as a young pupil and then a young student in the feminist movement. But I can assure that we have made much progress. There are many things in front of us to struggle for. Thank you for your comment. Then I go to the last comment that Nelly read to me, just read a bit, but it is also on the chat. I was not hinting or insinuating that the valuation of unpaid care work would entail compensation of housework, of unpaid work in the household. I endorse the 3 R's approach: recognition, reduction, and redistribution. I also mentioned that recognition means the value, the social value of this work, first of all, and then this recognition should also be translated in the GDP, in how this unpaid work is feeding in the general well-being of the society. There is, as a feminist economist, I can assure you that there has been much work since the 80s for measuring the contribution of unpaid work to the general well-being and questioning the validity of the GDP which measures only market product, or the product that goes through the market of the economy, the market production that goes to the market as a measure of well-being. So recognition means that we value as a society what is being done for free, and the production of the society that comes from unpaid labor. This is very, very important. Of course, women should join the labor market, and at the same time, this unpaid work should be shared. This is the feminist agenda. Reduction for women, how this reduction is going to come along by developing care services. This means services in the formal economy, and at the same time, the remaining unpaid work should be distributed equally between men and women. This is the feminist agenda. It's not about a salary for women that provide unpaid work. So this is my answer. Of course, we should take into account that care work is being done essentially by women that are not paid correctly, that many of them are of migrant origin, but the care sector is broader. I mean, there are many occupations in the care sector, and there can be an upgrading of such occupations, a different training of care workers, and this can provide also career opportunities for women and all laborers that engage themselves in care sectors. The care sector is low paid because there is an undervaluation of care work and undervaluation, non-recognition of the contribution of unpaid work, but it has not to be the same for eternally. And thanks to the consciousness that the society has gained through the pandemic, we are able now to speak about the re-evaluation. This means the wage rises in essential occupations and frontline occupations. So I think that it is not a fate for the care sector to have low wages and low career expectations for women that are engaged in them, but also we mustn't disregard the fact that the care sector is also the opportunity offers also an opportunity for recent migrants in the EU or refugees to find a gainful employment. So I think that we should take all these dimensions into consideration and try to give value and rise wages in these sectors.
Thank you, Maria. We have next Maria Stratigaki and then Sisi Vovou. Maria.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Maria, for your comprehensive lecture and presentation. I think it's very, very important. That I think that it's also quite new all these let's say thoughts about care economy in Greece. It's very important that the European Women's Lobby develops this topic and brings in the agenda of the European Union the whole thing of care economy. I would add also that in the European Parliament also, it has been a big event, a revendication of half of it by German Green MEP, who has made a big campaign about half of it of the recovery and reconciliation and resilience, recovery and resilience fund. So in at the European level, there are a lot of, let's say, women's movements, demands around it. My question is, why do you think that in Greece, although we are really, I mean, there is a huge amount of funding for the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and we are quite, let's say, dependent on European funding and all these policies. Why there is no really a discussion on the gender dimension of the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and on gender budgeting, because it's more or less connected to gender budgeting. So I really don't understand why in Greece we don't have such a debate. Is it because we don't trust the political system? Is it because we don't trust the European Union, or whatever? And just to add also that the European Court of Auditors has done a very important study showing that the European funding in general, not only the last one, the recovery fund, has really neglected the gender approach and the gender budgeting. So there are a lot of good reasons also for Greek women's organization, feminist organization, policymakers, and so on to connect to this debate and promote it also in Greece. So I wonder, why do you think we don't have this public debate in Greece yet?
I think that the feminist movement and women's organizations are occupied and concentrated and focusing on the gender-based violence, which has spread as because of real problems, and I think that they cannot do everything. I mean. Of course, it is not care is not and work issues have never been very at the forefront of the claims of the feminist movement for historical reasons. I don't know if I answer your question in detail, but these are my general remarks. I think that the opportunity for there is another issue. Our government, as all of you, most of you know, the Greek government has drafted and submitted to the European Commission the national plan for the resilience, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, the Greece 2.0, in secret, in total secret. The government has passed from the Greek Parliament a brief summary of Greece 2.0 in March 2021, excuse me, a very brief summary, some main priorities. Then it has negotiated with, in secret, with the European Commission, and it has not consulted the regions, the social partners, nobody. And finally, it has it has launched the debate in the parliament, the second debate in the parliament, after having concluded with the European Commission on the resilience, on the plan. So there has not been a dialogue, a social dialogue, or any kind of consultation of any kind of organization. If such opportunity presented itself, I think that feminist and organizations and women's organizations would be present. I'm not sure that they would have very much to say in detail, but in the main, for the main lines, they could have contributed. I mean, that you don't have to be a specialist to say that we need to invest more in healthcare, because you know that women in Greece and poor women in Greece, they are next to the pillow of the patient in the hospitals because of the lack of nurses and nursing staff. Okay, so to invest in healthcare, to invest in care and personal care, etc. I mean, you don't need to be a specialist to push forward for claims that are straightforward and for the allocation of funds in sectors that are very important for gender equality. So I think that the problem is what government we have. For example, public health receives about 3% of the whole plan, of the whole budget of the whole plan, in a country where the public health systems urgently needs funding. So we don't have funds for the care sector because the care sector, for example, is the care sector, it doesn't interest the government at all. Okay, this is a situation. For example, in the regional operational programs that will for the new ESPA, for the new ESPA, I'm not sure that will be funding for the institutions, care institutions under the municipalities. I'm not sure about that. So this is the situation. It's a political problem, but also the feminist movement is not. It is also a fact that the feminist movement traditionally has not given so much focus on with its claims on such matters.
Thank you, Maria. And now Sisi Vavu wants to comment. Sisi, you have to turn your microphone on. We cannot hear you. But press the...
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, okay.
Now we do.
I want to make a comment on the statement of Maria Karamessini, who we very much thank for her contribution, which we must read more carefully, of course. She spoke of the new feminist movement, which is a hope and so on, which is correct. We have a revolution here in Greece with the Me Too movement, which is related to the gender violence and violence against women, because gender violence is not only against women. But I must say that this new movement of new people is very much concentrated on the question of sexuality, sexual orientation, gender identity and all that, which is very important. But the main thing concerning women is our role in society, our role that they expect of us in the care sector of private or public life. either in the family or in the hospitals or whatever. And it's very important for us to concentrate on this basic identity of women, the identity they are giving us, of course, that since we are expected to be in the middle of the care work, we must fight against attributing this care work only to women. Unfortunately, the new feminist movement does not care very much, does not, is not engaged in this area of the very important and essential struggle of the women. And in the new feminist movement, many times they speak in the neutral, they abolish gender, and they avoid very much the word woman, which is, of course, pushing us back, because in the old times, the word woman was like a dirty word. It was not said. Now, through the new movement, we see that the word woman is avoided in favor of the dissolution of sex, of gender. We don't have genders, we have the neutral. So my hope from the new feminist movement is very much on the violence against women and also against LGBT people, but on the basic core of women's obligations in this society, the obligations that have been given to us on the question of the participation to care. Unfortunately, this movement does not very much see this thing. This is why when they say 5th of March of November is the day against gender violence, and they avoid very much the word woman. They don't say it's a day against for violence against women, but gender violence. And here we come to other kinds of thoughts and of analysis. So I wanted just to point out this, and in another opportunity we are going to talk. Thank you.
Okay, Maria, would you like to comment on that?
I agree with Cici. I started my answer to who? I don't to Maria. No, Maria Maribi.
Yes.
Yeah, when I started providing my answer to her comment, I stated, Cici, that the focus and the interest of this the new feminist movement is on gender-based violence. This is why they neglect the issues of care. So they are only interested, they focus on that. So I totally agree with what you said. Also about the threat that women disappear from visibility in the political discourse. And we have only gender, which is neutral and does not allow to see who is suffering from what, who is receiving and who is giving violence. So it is the visibility is lost if we only use the term gender-based thing, gender-based violence, etc. Of course, it is a new development. We should consider gender in a more broad sense, because we have the self-determination of gender, and so we should also endorse the new currents that enlarge the meaning of gender. And I'm more open, but at the same time we should stress that gender-based violence is a violence mostly against women, either biologically defined or self-determined as women. Okay.
Thank you, Maria. I just want to take advantage of my position as a discussant and make a comment about what Cici and you mentioned right now. And I was thinking as you were discussing this holistic approach on care, that while this is clearly very, very important to broaden the concept of who the person that we care for is, and not to think only about children, and sort of move away of this kind of demographic conception of work-life balance, which is a really important issue in Greece, given that the current government has tried to shift all the questions about gender to questions about demographics. So I think this kind of the way in which you extended care to include the long-term patients, to include migrants, to include refugees, to include all homeless, all different categories of people in need is really important. But I was thinking, and this somehow challenges what you two said right now, that we might also have to expand the notion of the carer and include other genders as well, because what we see, and here I would refer also to Anastasia Fradeskaki's comment on the chat. She says, they are young in age, thus the care matters seems to be mostly issues that the women of an older age take care of. But I was thinking that, and this is something that comes from my experience and also from people I work with, that, you know, we have different types of carers right now. Like we have families that are not structured in a heterosexual ways. We have carers who care for others who are not their children, who are not. So in the same sense that we expand and adopt a holistic approach of those that we care for, shouldn't we also expand the notion of who the carer is and think of other genders as well who care? That's what I wanted to say. I think that, of course, women continue to be the ones who take care mostly of others, and they are the ones who carry out mostly unpaid reproductive labor. But at the same time, there are shifts, and we need to take them into account, I think, while keeping in mind that, of course, women continue to be the ones who take most of the burden. That was my comment. I don't know if you want to say something, and then we have, because we have Fotini Sianou who wants to intervene as well.
Just a brief comment on your comment. Of course, there are men also contribute to care, and more the care gap is closing. Even during the pandemic, most surveys that have been carried out show that even though women shouldered the biggest part of extra unpaid work during the lockdowns, for example, men increased proportionally more their contribution to care. So the care gap during the pandemic was decreased. It did not increase. Okay, so we are moving, but very slowly. Things have changed. They are not as they were some decades ago, but the progress in women contributing to the paid work and progress of men contributing to unpaid work are disproportional. So we have the double shift. Now, related to the carer, of course, there are different families and different genders. But of course, I don't want to expand on that. But we shouldn't lose the visibility of women using always the term gender, because nobody understands what the gender is behind. So it is a matter of visibility. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Now, Fotini, And I'm sorry I took the floor before you, but
It's okay.
I just
I'm
had a pressing
having
question.
a problem with my system here. Can you hear me or not?
It's very faint.
Oh,
Can you make it speak a bit louder?
no, there's something wrong here.
Now we can hear you better.
Can you? Can you?
Yes, now it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. I just need to make 3 points. When we had strong women's committees in the trade union movement, we had these issues on the table. So please take into consideration how important it is to have strong women committees in the trade unions. They don't exist anymore, and the ones that do exist are quite weak. So these issues were on the table, not in the feminist movement in general, they were on the table with feminists in trade unions. My second point is that at the last, at the 4th Congress of the United Nations for women, gender equality and peace, there was huge work that was done, tons of work and studies that were done with regard to unpaid work and women's contributions. A lot of work done. Of course, this was not taken into consideration, not put high up on our agenda. And in the old women's movement in the 80s, there was a small group of women who were talking about salaries for unpaid work. Salaries, but not the vast majority of the women's movement in Greece. Although today, I would be thinking with a question mark about some sort of a pension, some sort of a pension for women who make the decision to work in the home and take care in the home, some sort of a pension for them, and not to be left without nothing in the end because they choose to provide care work. Now, I think that I am with the line redistribution and recognition is huge. Recognition is a huge thing. We recognize this thing and then we start making claims and demands and redistribution. So we will be fighting, we should be fighting for a very, very strong social care system and the redistribution with men. I think that the 8th of March this year is an opportunity to bring this issue high up. And what I have been trying to say for the last 2 years is that it should be linked care in the home and care for the planet. Care is not on the agenda in general, in the way, in the masculine way of thinking. So this isn't, I think, what the last word that Maria said, Karamessini, that we shouldn't miss the COVID, the pandemic opportunity is this, to raise this issue much higher on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fotinisianu. Maria, would you like to respond?
No, just to mention that in the 3 R's approach, recognition, reduction, redistribution. In the redistribution part, we have the reallocation of unpaid work from women to men and from the household to the state. So we have both of the things mentioned by Fotini. So I fully endorse her approach. And okay, for the pension and all these things, it's a big debate. I don't want to enter into discussion.
Okay. Are there any questions, other questions or comments? Please raise your hands if you have something to say. In the meantime, we have some comments by Anastasia Francescaki. The pandemic is a special period in many households. Many men have to remain at home. This is what we've been discussing before. And also to say that I have posted a link to a discussion we organized earlier with on the healthcare sector in Greece. during the pandemic. It's a discussion in Greek, and I have posted the link in case you're interested to also listen to this event. There's a video actually of the event. Any other questions or comments? I can't see any other. Okay. Maybe Maria, would you like to say a few final words about how you see the prospects of these proposals, of this concept, of this vision that you described to us, which is really fascinating, of being realized at the European level? Do you think that it is possible to actually move from an economy that is based on growth and on counting growth to a care economy, and actually make this part of the European policies now or in the future, and the European recovery plans as well from the pandemic?
I'm rather optimistic because I think that things that were unimaginable some years ago have been surfaced after the global financial crisis. For example, the UN agenda, 2030 agenda, was and the goal and the description of the goal on gender equality, which includes the care gaps, was prepared by the feminists that were part of the Diane Nelson's and other American US feminists that were close to Diane Nelson. I mean, the same group of feminist economists that produced the 3 R's approach and the care economy approach. So these were that influenced, and many of them work for the UN, and they started working just after the global financial crisis. So they mainstream the institution, the UN Women's Department of the. So they pushed forward, and they have influenced the whole goal. The repercussion of this was that the goals, the sustainable development goals, were introduced in the European semester, adopted by the European Union. So the gender equality policy of the European Union had to adopt the approach, and we have the care gaps integrated for the first time after the 80s in the gender equality strategy. So you see the repercussions and how things move at the level of institutions. What I am not very optimistic about is what is going to be, what are the main political forces that are going to dominate the political scenery after the elections in different national contexts. For example, we don't know what's going to happen in France. The political scenery is behind this extreme right claims for more security, anti-migrant closure of the European Union, etc., which goes with the rise of conservative ideas, homophobic, sexist, etc., etc. So the political environment's gloomy. The political the future of Europe at the political level is gloomy. It's very gloomy. So we are going to face the opposition frictions. I don't know how we say συγκρούσεις conflicts, political conflicts and social conflicts in Europe. So we had this thing in the United States. At the same, we had this, on the one hand, the radicalization of social movements, and on the other hand, we had the radical right movements and conservative movements, the extreme right movements. So I'm very afraid that we are heading towards the same situation in Europe. And in this kind of context, even if you have the best texts and the best policies, on the ground, the situation is very, very different. Very, very different. So what matters is, of course, to have good legislative things and policies, etc. Everything is important. We don't have to neglect or downplay whatever we have gained. But the real thing is on the ground, and the consciousness develops on the ground, and people take over their lives and take advantage of existing institutions to the extent that they have all realized the need for going forward. And I think that this is the most worrying thing, that we are, the prospects, political prospects in Europe and social prospects are gloomy. This is my final word.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. Are there any final questions or comments? If not, I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight, and to invite you to subscribe to our Facebook page and visit our website, where you can find all our previous events. And also we will upload information about future events and reports and podcasts and videos that we're going to upload. And you can also, I mean, obviously you can also read more about Maria's work in her latest book, which she didn't mention, but I'm sure you're all aware of it. And
also I have uploaded the previous book on reconciliation of work and family life.
Great.
The 2019 book, not the recent, the last one, which was published in 2021. So you have, I have attached and I have uploaded the book. You can download it. There is a second, I've uploaded the second edition, which appeared in 2020. So
okay.
It is free. It's free. You can download it for free. Okay.
Okay. Thank you all very much, and we will see you in the next event, hopefully.
Just for 1 minute, because there are people that can want to download it. So
yes, we are not going to close the. You have time to download it. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
We thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
The recording has stopped.
Okay, παιδάκια.
Okay.